Okay, let's get started. Hi again, my name is Ethan Gracer. I am a customer engineer with the Google CBRS team, and we're taking some time each week to meet with our customers. We want you to learn more about how the SAS works, what features are available, and how you can best get your deployments going with Google. Today's session will be 50 minutes. I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes discussing how our test SAS works and what you can use it for. And then we will transition into a discussion about suspended grants. We actually will talk a little bit about suspended grants and the kinds of error messages that you'll see. You'll notice on the right side of the live video is a chat window. Please feel free to submit questions to us throughout the session. The questions can be about what I'm talking about. The questions can be about anything generally CBRS related or Google SAS related. And I will answer them in the order that they appear at the end of my little presentation. If I don't get to any questions, or if you have more questions after office hours have finished, know you can always reach out to us for support at sas-support@google.com. Okay, with that, we're going to get started. So again, our agenda today is pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the test SAS, and then we will switch over into a Q&A. Okay, so what actually is the test SAS? The test SAS is a copy of our production SAS environment that has slightly different behaviors. We design it to be used for our vendors when they do interoperability testing with us. We design it for API integration testing. So if you would like to use the SAS Portal API to integrate with your network management interface, then you can develop against our test SAS. And we also have the test SAS to allow you to simulate pre-production deployments. If you're a customer and you want to see what incumbent protections there are in the area that you're going, you can use our test SAS to get a sense of what it will look like. The test SAS is completely free to use. The key thing to remember is that it does not moderate live traffic on the CBRS spectrum, and the test SAS is not Part 96 compliant. So it's only meant for simulated devices or for testing devices in a controlled environment. So if you're going to connect a real radio to this, you need to make sure that it's not going to turn on its transmitter when the SAS comes back and says, with a heartbeat request, the SAS comes back and it says, yes, you're authorized to transmit. We're really just simulating that behavior. We're not actually granting authorization through the test SAS. So why do I have this slide of all of these URLs? So one of the questions that we get most frequently from customers is kind of how to get access to all of the different pieces of the SAS. So the first item, the SAS CBSD URL, is the URL that you need to put into either your CBSD or your domain proxy in order to connect with the test SAS or the production SAS. So one workflow might be you connect a device to the test SAS in a controlled environment, you make sure that the device is working, and you put in the coordinates where you're going to deploy the device but haven't deployed the device yet, so that you can get a sense of what channels might be available once you actually go out and set that device up. So once you've used the test SAS and you've entered that test SAS URL, you've done your testing and you're ready to deploy, then you take the device out, you go and install it, and then you just swap over the URL to the production SAS URL. The SAS Portal URL is the web interface that we offer customers, which allows you to view your deployments in either the test SAS or in the production SAS. You'll notice that the URLs are almost identical. The main difference is just write that test dash in front of the test SAS portal URL. So if you have access to the production SAS portal, which all of our customers actually have access to both the test SAS and the production SAS, but most customers are really only making use of the production SAS so that they can look at their real-life deployments. You may not have access to the SAS portal for the test SAS, and if you go to the URL for the test SAS and you find that you can't log in, just reach out to the person at your company who manages your SAS portal, who administers your SAS portal, and they can add you as a viewer or an editor or a CPI or an admin, just as you would be added for the production SAS. And then you'll be able to look at all of the simulated deployments, if any, that your company has. The last URL, the SAS portal API base URL, is the base URL for the API, which allows you to make changes to the SAS portal using your own network management tool if you already have one. So some of our customers want to integrate their existing tooling with the SAS, and this is the best way to do that. So that's probably, the SAS portal API is probably going to be a topic for another day, but that's what these URLs are for. So how do you actually simulate a device in the test SAS? There are 3 steps. First is adding device parameters in the SAS portal in the test instance that I mentioned. The second is simulating registration, spectrum inquiry, grant request, and heartbeat as required, depending on what you are trying to evaluate about your deployment. And then the third item is to evaluate the SAS responses. I'm going to go through each of these one at a time. So first, to add a device in the SAS portal, you'll notice that the test SAS portal looks exactly the same as the production SAS portal. And what I've done in this screenshot is I've logged into my test SAS portal, I've added a device, and I have signed it as a CPI. The configuration status is pending registration. And when I hover my mouse over the circle with an exclamation point next to the serial number, a little pop-up comes up that says the device is unregistered. Right, and so this is a standard multi-step registration flow. I've added all of my data into the SAS portal, and at this point the SAS is just waiting to hear from my simulated CBSD. So in the second step is to simulate the device, and from the SAS's point of view, a CBSD is just an HTTP client, right? So if you have technical experience, or if you've ever used your web browser, then you'll be familiar with, a web browser sends a request to, let's say you're going to google.com, the web browser sends a request, and Google responds with the information needed to display the web page on your computer screen. So this curl command, which is a command run in a bash shell, gives you an example of what you would send to the test SAS in order to simulate a device. You'll notice that under the data argument, in red I've highlighted that we're issuing a registration request. I provide the same FCC ID, user ID, and CBSD serial number that I had in the last slide that I saved in the SAS portal. And then I use the test.sas.goog URL, and I provide the registration endpoint so that our SAS is able to take this data and correlate it with the data that's been entered into the SAS portal. After I send this request, I need to evaluate the SAS response. So after I send the request, 2 things are going to happen. One is I'm going to get a response, a registration response, and this is what a registration response looks like. Each network call to the SAS has a slightly different structure. And the registration response includes the CBSD ID, which is generated by our SAS, and a response code, 0, which indicates success. And you'll notice that I included a screenshot of what happens in the test SAS portal after I get the successful registration response. My device is now marked as registered, and the configuration status is active. Right, so now if I wanted to test my device, I could proceed with a spectrum inquiry request and a spectrum inquiry response, or a grant request, grant response, heartbeat request, heartbeat response. So what are the kind of notable responses we're looking for when we send the spectrum inquiry, grant, and heartbeat responses to the SAS? So for spectrum inquiry, there are 15 10 megahertz channels that the SAS will return in spectrum inquiry. Often what will happen if you deploy near a GWPZ is that 5 of those channels will just be missing. So you'll have channels from 3550 all the way to 3650, but you won't see any channels available from 3650 to 3700. That indicates that there is a higher tiered user who's always using the top 50 megahertz, and so that spectrum is not available to you. In a grant response, if you ever get an interference message in response to the from the SAS, it basically means that the SAS can't authorize transmission for any power for a device on this channel. It's very likely in an exclusion zone in this case. The heartbeat response codes that might cause you to think about your deployment or tweak the parameters is the suspended grant code, which is 501. And there are 3 possible messages that come along with the suspended grant. We talked a little about these last week, but just to reiterate them, interference calculations pending means that the SAS is still determining how much power can be allocated to your device, and we will respond within just a couple of minutes. The IEP Pending Reason. IEP refers to our power allocation algorithm that happens once a day during CPAS. And if you see this IEP Pending Reason, it means that we are going to be able to authorize a grant at some power after CPAS, but we cannot authorize it beforehand because we need to check with the other SASs first. Do not relinquish the grant or re-register the device before CPAS. If you do, then you'll move to the back of the line. And the last reason, other, is a grouping for all of the other reasons that a suspended grant might happen, which basically come down to the SAS being required by WinForum or FCC rules to protect higher priority users from interference that would be caused by this grant. It's a temporary suspension. It's not something that's meant to last forever. And similar to the IEP Pending Reason, it's probably best not to relinquish the grant or re-register the device before CPAS because the SAS may be able to remove this restriction after CPAS occurs. That's the end of my presentation for today. Leave the rest of the time for questions if anybody has them. And yeah, we'll see. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to ask. I'll give it a few more minutes to see if we have any more questions. One thing to note is that you can also use the test SAS for authorization if you have a stay. So if you have a license from the FCC that allows you to transmit on CBRS frequencies, you are allowed to use the test SAS to request permission to transmit. If you do not have a stay and you're operating under Part 96 rules, then you may not use the test SAS for authorization. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions, so I think we are going to call it for the day. Please keep in mind that we are available to you via sas-support@google.com. Any questions that you have, please send them our way. Any feedback that you have about these sessions, we're happy to consider topics that you're interested in hearing about. We're here to make this a helpful time for you, so please do let us know what you would like to hear about in future sessions. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in.